Why would a guy break up with a girl after dating her for 5 years and then marry another one just after 6 months? So what should a woman do then? Or likewise, what should I do in response to God's love? Do I sit back and say, if God wants to, he will?
No.
Unkulunkulu must.
You should love your wife. And to the woman, you should submit.
Yeah.
But I've had debates going on. No, how can I submit if there is no love?
Okay.
Or how can I love when there is no submission?
Yeah.
But this is God addressing the man without the woman. It doesn't say love the woman if she submits. There is no condition. The commandment is love. To the woman, the commandment is submit.
Yeah, church. Who they stand up in front. Mina ngangigeza, ngakhuleka futhi ngazila ukudla. uNkulunkulu yangiphathisa yangipha indoda. Do you think other women were doing that?
Not praying.
Exactly. So they weren't praying. You're the only one. Your prayers
were the only ones.
Your prayers at Aromat.
Welcome to the Truth Tok Podcast, where we uncover the hidden truths and untold stories. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the host and guest, and they aim to bring light to the unspoken realities of life. The content shared here is for informational purposes only, and it is not intended to replace professional advice. Listener discretion is advised. Now, to the podcast.
Hello, and welcome to Truth Tok Podcast. My name is Jason Lalasi, the Soulful Nerd.
And I'm Lunga, the inspired content creator.
Yeah, and we're back
with another episode. Yeah.
After a fire episode.
Sure, bruh.
Colonialism.
Yo, man. You guys did a good job.
Yeah.
I still keep on going back to it. It's the fire episode.
Yeah.
If you missed the previous episode, please go check it out.
Yeah.
It's.
I enjoyed doing that episode.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah,
it was good. Yeah.
Yeah, I like having that kind of guest.
Yeah. And you introduced people and said I've gone to talk.
Yeah, you're talking to your wife on the phone.
Okay. Yeah. So my wife says hi.
Yeah. I say hi to her too.
Hello.
She should find me a wife too.
I'll talk to her. Yeah. So today we're on episode 11.
Yeah.
And quite alright.
I'm a little under the weather, so I have to apologize for my voice.
Okay.
Yeah. Our producer is deadly. The guy's contagious. Yeah.
It's fine. I'm protected.
Yeah. I wonder how. Anyway, it's titled God's Firstborn Wife. It's gonna be evident later.
Yeah.
Why I gave it that title.
My facial expressions say it all.
Yeah, God's Firstborn Wife.
Yeah.
So, in the last episode, at the end, our guest said we should study the Bible.
Yeah.
And find out, judge Christianity by its source document.
Yeah.
By where it claims to come from, and judge it by that, not by how others have twisted it.
Exactly.
And which is in line with what we've been trying to do this season.
Yeah. To encourage people to read.
Yeah.
I think most of us have what did you call it? Hot-spotted interpretation of the word of God. Yeah. I see that a lot because we live in an era that has a lot of information. So you want something, you just Google it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So people are not reading, but they are Googling information for convenience. So if you ask someone who was Isaac's wife, instead of information coming from reading, they just Google a quick answer there.
Yeah.
So in this era, whereby everyone is just Googling and worse off with artificial intelligence,
certainly
that has made things worse. Right?
Yeah.
And people now have artificial intelligence. Not really.
The shade.
Yeah. So it's crazy.
Yeah.
And I like it that you ended the episode by encouraging that we should read. And maybe we can also refer to those who want to understand more about understanding your own personal religion to episode 1 of our podcast. Yeah. We're talking more about
owning what you believe.
Owning what you believe. Yeah.
So anyway, season 2 is coming up. We're just weeks away from season 2.
Oh yes.
The Mjolo season.
Mjolo, the pandemic.
But while I was researching for that, been asking people around. I asked somebody, if God could answer any 2 questions you would have about men. If he said, I'll answer any 2. And one of the questions that came through was, why would a guy break up with a girl after dating her for 5 years and then marry another one just after 6 months?
Did they really ask that? Isn't it obvious?
No, it's not obvious. That's why they want to know. They want to ask God. Because you guys don't talk.
No. Well, if I date you for 5 years and then marry another one within 6 months, simply, especially, okay, I'm saying this from the perspective of the guy being the one who dumps the girl.
Yeah.
So if the guy dumps the girl whom he has dated for 5 years and marries another one within 6 months, simply means that he's found the one he loves. So all along he's been dating you for convenience. And now he's finally found the one he loves.
So you're the only chick, but you're the side chick.
Yes, because in all these years, right? If you say he marries another one in 6 months, so we can't say it's an issue of finances. We can't say those 5 years he didn't have money.
Yeah.
So he had his mind set on marriage, but he just had not yet found the one.
Yeah, because the real question is, what makes a man decide to marry a woman?
Yeah.
And, well, I don't know. Well, we're going to have a Mjolo season.
We're going to talk more about that. Yeah.
But at the beginning of this year, at the end of last year, I made up my mind to stop writing about that kind of stuff and to stop discussing it. Because
discussing it,
the truth is not... Well, stop discussing it with the other gender.
Oh, okay.
That other gender.
Okay.
Not because I hate the other gender, contrary to popular belief. Because your wife even said I was a cyber bully.
Yeah.
But contrary to popular belief, I wasn't talking about... I don't hate the other gender or anything.
Yeah.
But...
No, what you're saying is, in simple terms, it's like lions deciding to go and talk to impalas about hunting.
Yeah.
There's nothing common.
Yeah.
The other ones are the ones who are hunted. The other ones are the ones who are doing the hunting.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about those things of relationships and whatever, it's best to talk to people of the same gender. So if I'm a guy, I talk to guys about it.
Yeah, talk to other hunters.
Yes. The moment I talk to a girl about it, from a girl's perspective, we'll then debate, argue, because they see things from a different perspective. I see things from a different perspective. Right? We can talk about issues of doing family together and stuff. But when I want advice, I don't go to a woman.
Yeah.
I'll go to a man. Yeah. So I think that was a good decision.
Hunt this Impala. Yeah. So an Impala would say, look, don't sneak up in the grass. Just come out again. I recently came out again and I told somebody something that you found scandalous. We will not go into detail, but if somebody asks a question, they should get a straight answer.
Why do I feel like following this up? Anyway, I won't.
No. It's not important.
Interesting. Okay, yeah.
Because the truth is, the things that make a man decide to marry a woman are not really romantic.
No.
You won't find them in romance novels, but usually, I have to, with a disclaimer, usually, where I've found that when that other gender asks questions, they want to hear romantic stuff.
Yeah.
Which...
No, the real reason why a man marries a woman, it's not all
the checklist he has is it's I made the mistake of revealing that kind of checklist to some women, and our relationship has not improved. It's still in tatters.
So you'll notice that
I'm a forthright person.
Yeah. I mean, you're very right. The things that make me decide to marry someone are not the novel kind of stuff, but it's things like companionship, things like respect, and the desire for partnership or companionship that comes around to be the same thing. And if you were to tell someone that, like, that's boring. That's why ladies will ask you, Uguti, tell me 5 reasons why you love me. They want to hear those romantic type of things, the Mills and Boone type of stuff. But really, I married her because she can cook. No, that's a lie. I can't marry her because she can cook, because I can cook too.
Now somebody asked me, one lady asked me, Jason, what's your dream woman? And I said, I don't dream about women. I dream about money.
Exactly.
Hours and hours. Do you dream about women? Dude, that's crazy. I'm not in Form 4 anymore. I'm a grown up.
I think we see things from a different perspective. So you'll notice that because of that, then the ladies would want to present themselves in a certain way, thinking that when we see them from that perspective, we'll then decide to marry them. But actually, those are not the things that I look for. You see, and also they have their own side to things that we may never understand, right? So things are different, right? And so I get what you're saying. You're better off discussing these issues with
with other men. I remember telling one guy that, instead of trying to convince a zebra to turn into a kudu, just go for the kudu. Less energy, less time. Anyway, we're moving on. The next section, first section's title is God's Crush.
Okay.
And I'm going to read an excerpt.
Okay. Why? Okay. I see where you're going with this. The idea. So why does God decide to marry us? Okay. Yeah.
To God's crush. And I'm going to read an excerpt from his breakup text.
Okay.
With Israel.
Okay.
It's Ezekiel 16, verse 6 to 8. The Good News Bible. Then I passed by and saw you squirming in your own blood. You were covered with blood, but I wouldn't let you die. I made you grow like a healthy plant. You grew strong and tall and became a young woman. Your breasts were well formed, and your hair had grown, but you were naked. As I passed by again, I saw that the time had come for you to fall in love. I covered your naked body with my coat and promised to love you. Yes, I made a marriage covenant with you, and you became mine. This is what the sovereign Lord says. So why did God choose Israel?
Why did God choose Israel?
You mentioned something about
you mentioned something there. Dude, I think you being under the weather is a problem.
I'm trying to recover.
Okay, what comes into my head quickly, I'm trying to scroll in my Bible here, is a text that we find in Deuteronomy chapter 7.
Okay.
I think it's verse 5 or verse 6. I can't remember. Oh, yeah. It's verse 7, actually. Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 7. It says, so giving us the reason why God chose Israel. It says, the Lord did not set his heart on you and choose you because you were more numerous than other nations, for you were the smallest of all the nations. Rather, it was simply that the Lord loves you, and he was keeping the oath he had sworn to your ancestors. This is why the Lord rescued you, and with such a strong hand from your slavery and the oppressive hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. I like this version because verse 8 actually says, rather, it was simply that the Lord loves you. Yeah. So there is no romantic reason why God chose Israel, right? To say, I chose Israel because she was walking like a model and Israel was looking so gorgeous you could look at her once and get blinded. All those poetic stuff. No, God simply just says, I didn't choose you because you were numerous. I didn't choose you because you were huge. I didn't choose you because of all this. I chose you because I simply loved you. Yeah. That's the reason.
Just simple as
God
that.
just loved Israel. and chose Israel. So it goes back to our first question:
Yeah.
why does a man then decide to marry? It's love.
Yeah.
After 6 months, 5 years, it's love. So previously there was no love. No, just love, just love. That's it.
You're not helping things, Maq. They want to know
Love.
how. How can you just do that? 5 years.
Because love. But they are not fairs, ladies. Why they are asking that question to say, how can a man leave a girl after 5 years and then marry another one in 6 months?
Mm-hmm.
But this is the assumption that the man is the one who's doing the dumping, like I said.
Yeah.
But most of us guys, we get dumped.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And we are left with wondering why. And then love comes along as well. Then you get married.
No, you've got to move on. You can't be crying forever.
Exactly. Yeah. So that question has a preconception to it, but it's not always the fact that the guy is the one who teaches.
Yeah, but in this case, the question was.
In this case, actually, let me build the case.
And you were in the group. And you were in the same WhatsApp group.
Yeah.
And I said, sometimes you're the only chick, but you're still the side chick. I don't know. I can't beat about the bush. I've tried. Every time I try to be, I'm going to beat about the bush and all that, it just never makes sense. So I just prefer just to be
honest. Look at what's happening here, Jason. So
sometimes when someone says, I don't believe in marriage, in getting married, the with you is silent. I think that was a meme somewhere. Yeah. Because the guy says, I don't believe in getting married. And she thinks, okay, we're going to be girlfriend and boyfriend forever and ever and ever.
The with you is silent.
Yeah, the with you is silent.
In marriage with you.
Yeah.
For me, the where this text is taking us is, so remember the backstory here.
Uh-huh.
Israel belongs to God initially by creation. Uh-huh. Well, not Israel, but humanity by creation.
Yeah.
But humanity decides to divorce God. I like to put it that way. Mm-hmm. Humanity decides to dump God and choose another path. Remember our episode where we were talking about Eve?
Yeah.
They decided to dump God and say, no, we don't want anything to do with you.
Yeah.
And they dump God, they go away. But God then comes back later to redeem Israel. So God decides then to use Israel as the tool. Probably we'll talk about this later on, but God decides to choose Israel, not for any romantic reasons, but this choice is a choice that is depicting the mission that God has for the rest of the world. Mm-hmm. So chosenness in this case is chosen for a purpose, chosen for a mission, right? And we'll see as we go on what Israel was probably called for, what they were supposed to do. So it's simply love that led God to choose Israel.
Okay.
And therefore, whatever he does after that, he does it for love, just out of love.
Wow.
Yeah. In the text that you read, if you see the condition of Israel,
yeah.
Israel was literally the hamba juba baza kucuta phambili.
Yeah.
The juba hambered, but kucuta phambili, and that verse then shows that Israel was gushing out blood, right?
Yeah.
Israel was in a bad state, but God then decides, I want this woman who's in a bad state.
Yeah.
This doesn't happen in our circle of community of faith, in the Christian circle,
okay,
whereby you are told that girl, we know it. As gens we talk.
Yeah.
Right, we talk a lot about because I think we mentioned it earlier that if I want a girl, I come and ask you. Actually, they say in another community of faith that I know, they say before you marry a girl, take her to musicians, number one, and number two, to photographers. They will tell you
what about photographers?
Her history.
Who are musicians?
Those ones even know more. They'll tell you because they are connected. They see people coming to the studio to take some funny photos. Musicians, they know a lot of people because they travel a lot. So take her to those guys and they'll tell you, this girl is good or bad, right? So imagine you take her to those guys. They tell you, this woman, we know her. 15 guys, A, B, and C did this and that and that and that and that. After that, you say, I still choose her.
Sure.
This is what God is doing.
Yeah.
Despite all the things that you're telling me, I still want that chick.
He has no good reasons.
He has exactly. There's no good reason. He just chose her because he loves her.
Because I was going to ask,
yeah,
can I make God choose me any more than a woman can make me love her?
No, you can't.
Yeah, because I remember I was somewhere and I bumped into 4 women.
Wow.
Yeah. And one of them was looking for you.
Oh.
Asked for Maqhawe.
Okay.
One of them was interesting. And I dropped a line in your inbox and I said to you, Maq, I met 4 women today. One of them asked about you and one of them was interesting. And you said,
I remember.
Lowe's, what am I?
I almost said the
name.
Yeah.
We cannot do that. Not again.
I almost dropped the name.
Remember, Fabulous Puma said 2 gig.
Yeah.
So, and it was that. If you had to ask me today, what was it? I don't know. I just
you just said.
I mean, yeah, she's pretty.
Yeah.
But there was something else that just said, no, you need to find out more about this woman.
Exactly.
If you ask me today, how did you get there? I don't know.
No, those, exactly what that's, you can't explain some of those things.
Yeah.
The only explanation, even the Bible,
yeah.
just said it was simply love.
Yeah.
Nothing more. Just simply love.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So I think if we go beyond that thing of trying to explain why God chose us, we'll realize that we are not worthy.
Okay.
Of being chosen. Literally, we are not worthy.
Okay.
And there's nothing we can do to make God love us.
Uh-huh.
Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Okay.
You know, I hear in Christian circles where they teach that you need to keep the law so that God can love you. You need to dress like this. You need to sing like this. Man.
I was teaching some kids somewhere and I asked them, what can you do to make God love you more? And they're rattling off the usual boring list. Read your Bible, pray, you know. And I'm like, does that even make any sense to you when you say it? You can't do anything to make God love you.
You can't.
He chooses.
You know, I always ask people this question. What did the thief on the cross do to make God, Jesus, give him that promise?
Nothing. It's just
the guy was dying. Yeah. The guy was a criminal. What did he do?
Nothing.
And the nothing part of it, of course, when we explore, is he just believed.
Yeah.
That's nothing.
Yeah, that's it.
It's just believe. Right? Yeah. But we always think that we need to do something. You know, I think probably it's because of our background. The previous episode, you guys talked about colonialism, the clutches of colonialism on Christianity, and even talked about the idea of how now the African church is trying to discard colonialism and Christianity and saying, let us go back to our heritage, our culture, you know, and let us be African. I've heard of African traditional religion creeping into Christian communities, right? Let's be African in our worship and stuff. And I'm thinking, man, do you know how worship was in the African setup? And maybe that's why we are still held by it, because we believed that you need to appease the spirits. You need to do something for the spirits to accept you. So a child has done something wrong, please kill a bull, appease the spirits. But what does God do? God then comes in place and they say, you don't need to do anything. Actually, I'm the one who's going to die for you. And he's not doing it to appease. No, he's doing it so that he can show us the extent of how much he loves us. Say, I'm willing even to give my life so that you can be saved. Right? Which is
topsy-turvy, upside down.
Exactly, it's upside down. Other gods will say, appease me. But this God that we worship says, do nothing. I will do something so that you can be saved.
Okay. Man, that's incredible, because the more reasons you have to make a choice, someone said, the less freedom you have.
Oh, yeah, true. Yeah, it's very true.
So sometimes people say, no, Jason, why don't you pick that woman? No, Jason, why did you pick that woman? I think, no, I'm fooling. I don't want her.
And you don't need to give any reason.
I remember I was hanging out with you and another guy from our church, and he asked me, Jason, why ungakhombisi silwana? And I said, I'm fooling.
Simple. Simple. Yeah, just like the same reason when they ask you, why you kombiselwana?
And I think sometimes as a guy, people put so much pressure on you. And they keep giving good reasons. And you feel pressured, because the more you end up asking her out, not because you want her, but because you don't want to look stupid.
Exactly.
Because the more I keep saying when people keep piling up the good
you end up trying to...
I end up looking stupid. Like,
exactly.
So I think, no, I don't want to look stupid, so let me just ask her out.
Yeah.
And everything keeps failing, and you don't know why it's failing. But the reason you're failing is because
exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So at least I prefer a situation. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with people suggesting someone, but there's a point. It has to be within limits. We say, no, what have you considered? So when I think what,
yeah.
And then boom, and then leave it at that.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then let the person choose.
Exactly.
Because when there are problems later on, there's nothing to help you get up and fix your mess other than that simple line. Ngazikhetile. Yeah.
Ketile.
Yeah. But ngazikhetile. And so there's a lot of freedom that God has given us as men.
Yeah.
When it comes to love.
Yeah.
To say, I think we have a greater power to choose who to love.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Somebody said the man is the one with the keys to the relationship.
Yeah. To marriage.
Yeah. If two people are sitting, a man and a woman are sitting together somewhere, and one person turns to the other and asks, "What are we?" We all know it's the woman. We all know it's the woman.
I said it that it's bad that you're under the weather today because. But anyway, I won't comment.
No, and well,
you are right. Yeah.
So and I think it's very important, that aspect, to say I chose this person
exactly
freely,
without any coercion, without any
pressure
pressure. Yeah.
Because then, when the difficulties come, there is that, and I think that line is important, where, because I think even the woman can say, "Dude, I didn't force you, I didn't pressure you. More line. Now you're doing this."
Exactly.
So whether or not, even if I don't man up and things break off, at least there's that stronghold, that foothold, that line that says, "But when I was kitted,
exactly."
And then you're like, okay, I might as well fix it because I chose it.
Exactly.
But whereas if I didn't cater, and I remember an older lady was, I don't know if you were there when we're hanging out, and this older lady said to us, a lot of problems that people have, and I have this cause underneath, and it's a very silent cause. Not many people talk about it. The fact is, this man didn't freely choose.
Oh, yes. I remember. I think I was there. I think I remember.
Because it's embarrassing to say, I was manipulated into this relationship.
Exactly.
And even sometimes when you say it, people say, come on, man, you're a man. How can you be? But the fact is, whatever we say, if I feel I didn't choose this woman freely, then
I will not take responsibility.
And there will be a serious problem.
There will be a serious problem in that. Yeah.
So it's almost as if we're forced or getting a force. I don't want to use that word that will downgrade the video.
Yeah, no, don't. Please don't. Yeah. Be nice.
So what should a woman do then?
Nothing.
Or likewise, what should I do in response to God's love? Do I sit back and say, if God wants to, he will?
No.
Unkulunkulu must. If he wants to, he will. After all, he chooses to love. So,
Jason. Anyway, let me answer the question. And ignore. But what? That's what they say in the must. So in this case, unkulunkulu must. What should I do? What should a woman do? What should I do to make God love? We said you can't do anything. So what should I do? The only thing that you should do is, when you have been chosen, just reciprocate that love.
Okay.
Simply. If someone comes to you and says, I love you, if you love that person back, that is, if you love that person back, just show it. Right. And when it comes to God, I think it's
but even if it's not I love you. If someone shows an interest in you and you're interested,
yeah,
now it shows some interest. Don't be stupid.
Exactly.
The scarecrow waiting.
Exactly. Because contrary to popular belief, I've had this a lot in Christian circles.
Okay.
Where they twist God's words.
Okay.
Right? God's word comes and says to the men, you should love your wife.
Mm-hmm.
And to the woman, you should submit.
Yeah.
But I've had debates going on. No, how can I submit if there is no love? Okay. Or how can I love when there is no submission? Yeah. But this is God addressing the men without the woman. It doesn't say love the woman if she submits. There is no condition. Yeah. The commandment is love. To the woman, the commandment is submit.
Yeah.
There is no condition whatsoever, right? So when it comes here, when God loves you, the only response that you can do is to obey his commandments, because he has done his part to love you. And then he says in John chapter 14, verse 15, if you love me, keep my commandments, right? So a person who's loved by God, the first thing that God expects from you is to love him. He doesn't give you the condition to keep his commandments when you don't love him. He says, if you love me, then keep my commandments. Okay. So he's saying, I have loved you. Reciprocate that love with love. Okay. So if you love me, then keep my commandments.
Man, that's just simple. And while we go and think about keeping commandments, let's take a break.
Sure.
See you around.
Drink some water.
Hey, welcome back.
Welcome back. Yeah. This was an amazing break.
Yeah. It took like batting.
For the wrong team.
I didn't say it, you did. Anyway, welcome back to our episode, God's Firstborn Wife. This is the second section. Yeah, and it's entitled, Don't Mess with God's Firstborn Son.
Firstborn wife.
Son.
The section. Oh, okay.
Don't mess with God's firstborn son.
Son. Yeah.
And so I'm reading the easy to read version.
Okay.
The ERV. Okay. Exodus 4, verse 22 and 23.
Yeah.
Then you should say to Pharaoh, this is what the Lord says. Israel is my firstborn son, and I'm telling you to let my son go and worship me. If you refuse to let Israel go, then I will kill your firstborn son. That's really weird. Because Israel wasn't the firstborn.
No.
Okay. But then when you go back, Abraham wasn't the firstborn.
No, he wasn't.
Isaac's situation is different because
he wasn't Abraham's firstborn.
Yeah, he was his mom's firstborn.
Yeah, he was his mom's firstborn.
So Abraham had 2 firstborns.
I know a guy who has 5 firstborns.
Yeah. Reminds me of some elders. I know of a woman who had 6 firstborns.
Yes.
And then one of her daughters had firstborns as well.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's like a generational. It runs in the family. So Abraham was like some elders I know.
Yeah.
Kids all over the place. But okay, Isaac wasn't chronologically the firstborn.
Exactly.
He had a bigger brother named Ishmael.
And Israel as well wasn't firstborn. The firstborn was Esau. Yeah.
David wasn't the firstborn.
Yeah.
Solomon wasn't the firstborn.
Yeah.
I think Ephraim. You said Ephraim.
Yeah.
Ephraim wasn't the firstborn. So how can God call this guy my firstborn? Like, but God, really?
It's because when we are reading the Bible, sometimes we shouldn't just read the surface and say it's enough, right? Okay. Well, those who skeptics usually would read that passage and try to conclude that the Bible is messed up. I've heard some talk about this in that context, right? But in this element where God says Israel was the firstborn son, he's not talking about birth order.
Okay.
He's talking about preeminence, as in status.
Okay.
Right? The status of Israel is that I've chosen him. And because I've chosen him, right, I've put him above everyone else. Therefore, he becomes my firstborn.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So it's a matter of status. The guy that we talked about, Ephraim, right? Manasseh was older than Ephraim.
Yes.
Right.
They were
And
Joseph's boys.
They were Joseph's boys, and Manasseh was older. But the one who was chosen as the firstborn was Ephraim. Remember what the father did when blessing the sons?
Yeah, crossed
his hands and chose this one over this one.
Yeah.
And so
even despite Joseph's protestation.
Yes, remember Joseph had brought to the boys Manasseh on the right side, and Joseph protested.
Yeah.
But still, he says, "Can't you are now doubting what I've done?" Something like that. Well, paraphrased, yeah. So it's all about preeminence in this case, not about birth order.
Okay.
So what we've been talking about from the beginning, that God chose Israel. So because he chose Israel, Israel is preferred above everyone else. Not that Israel is better. We've mentioned this.
Yeah.
Not that Israel is better than anyone else, but is just being chosen as a tool to reach out to everyone else.
Okay.
So it's all about preeminence.
Yeah. Man, that's something. Because I remember the story in Genesis where apparently Jacob and Esau were battling out even in the womb.
Oh, yeah.
And Rebecca's, what's happening? And the thing about these firstborns is they're miracle babies. Isaac was a miracle baby. His mom, Sarah, found herself with gray hair and a maternity dress. I'm trying to imagine the Canaan clinic. The maternity clinic at the time. There are all these mothers, young mothers with, expected mothers.
25-year-olds.
Yeah, this is granny. This granny
Makoko. Yeah, you're working with that.
What's going on here?
Yeah.
I mean, if you talk about God knowing how to draw attention, and she's part of his promise to say, where there is death, I'm going to bring life.
Yes.
And so Isaac was a miracle baby. Now, Rebecca also, she was like one of those wives whose husband's sister drags aside and tells him, udla mahar, udla sukudla wethu. Feeding you here, there are no children. Do something.
And God came through it.
Maybe don't put on such modest clothes anymore when your husband is home. Do something weird. Anyway, so yeah, she took her time to, but probably not as much as Sarah.
Not as much as Sarah, yes, yeah.
But so while she's expecting, and she's told, no, there are two nations in you, and the older one will serve the younger.
Which puts out there what we were saying there, that chosenness, status, preeminence, all those things show that firstborn is not about, in God's kingdom, right? Yeah. In God's kingdom, firstborn is not about birth order.
God doesn't care about your birth certificate.
Doesn't care about that.
Doesn't even read it. Anyway, so...
Yeah.
Now, when you read the story, you think, okay, so Jacob must have been better than Esau. He must have been a goody two-shoes. And there's the next story. And the footnotes I read in the New English Translation said that the description of Jacob cooking lentil stew.
Yeah.
Hey, lentil stew, bro. I love lentils.
Yeah, especially if you put fresh cream. Oof, man, and spices.
Yeah, I've been calibrating my
your taste,
my taste buds of
yeah. I know lately you
spinach.
You came up on this episode saying that you hate spinach, but I'd like you to make a public proclamation to all our viewers that you now appreciate.
There are certain types of spinach dishes that I appreciate.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I eat humble pie. Anyway, so he's cooking lentils. So it says the way he's described as cooking lentils, he's described as a hunter waiting for prey.
Okay. Interesting.
So it's the story of, and we all know, well, maybe we don't all know, but Esau sold his birthright for lentil stew. Now, lentil stew is tasty, but hey, Esau, come on.
Sell your birthright. Yeah.
So it's the story of the hunter.
Yes.
Who becomes the hunted.
The hunted.
So if you thought Esau was bad, Jacob hunts his brother.
Mm-hmm.
So Jacob is a little...
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in those stories, do you see something?
Yeah. And also, when he goes to lie, when his mom sends him to lie and pretend he's Esau.
Yeah.
When you listen to him lying to his dad, he starts off saying the stuff his mom told him to say, but then he adds his ingenuity to it.
Yeah.
So that shows that at first he was reluctant, but he's now entered into the lie.
Yeah.
So he's not a goody two shoes.
Exactly. And the question that we naturally would ask, someone would say, you guys are talking about this guy has been chosen. This guy has been chosen as the firstborn. What did he do to be chosen? It goes back to that.
Nothing.
But here you're unpacking that Abraham himself had done some shady stuff with the maid.
Yeah.
Right?
That embarrassing incident.
And Abraham, at some point, he lies when he goes to Egypt. You remember that?
Yeah.
So when you look at him, you don't see nothing in him really worthy of choosing, right?
Yeah, he isn't a goody two shoes.
Exactly. Isaac, of course, we don't hear much, but when you read the Bible, we are told that Isaac despised the word of God.
Okay.
In the sense that he knew the prophecy that the younger would serve the older.
But still
he decided to give the blessing to the older one.
Yeah,
and that's why the mother decides to engineer this. So Isaac also was a bit shady in that. We come to Jacob. Jacob, like you said, he was a hunter waiting for his prey. And he's doing some deceptive stuff so as to win the birthright.
It reminds me of that short video you did where you're talking about why God embarrasses his friends.
Why he would allow such stuff to be written about his friend.
About his homies.
Exactly. And so when God comes and then says, Israel is my firstborn, he's saying, I've chosen him not because of what he has done.
Okay.
Because his record of life is messed up.
Yeah.
So it's not about what he has done, but it's about my love for him. So he's my firstborn because I've chosen.
He says to Pharaoh, you're pressing my boy.
Oh, yes.
My lighty.
Yeah.
Let my lighty go.
Let my lighty go.
If because you're oppressing my lighty, I'm gonna oppress your lighty. Oppress your lighty.
Exactly.
Yo. So Israel is a model of how God sees us. He says, I want you to be the preeminent one. I want you to be the example.
Yes.
Of how I do things.
Yes.
Because when he said to Abraham, I want Abraham to be the one to teach. He's going to teach.
Oh, yes. That was episode 9.
Yeah, episode 9.
Episode 9, yeah.
I want Abraham to be the one who teaches. And now the kids have come up. Yes. Abraham's kids have come up. But now he wants these guys. So the blessing for us also comes in seeing how God treats people. That God just bigs you up and takes you to the next level.
Exactly.
And it's not because of anything you've done. It's because he just looks at you and says, man that's my boy. Or that's my girl.
You know, it is when we're talking about Bible stuff, Jason, that we think that Israel came from the hand of God.
Yeah.
And other nations came from the hand of the devil. Like when you read how messed up those people are.
Yeah.
So the history of the world in a nutshell, there's Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve have children. They do all that stuff and they have children. And there's the story of the flood. God chooses Noah. After the flood, they multiply. After they multiply, the generations that come after the flood are so wicked.
Okay.
So wicked.
Yeah.
That the whole earth is filled with wicked people.
Once more.
Then God decides then to choose Abraham and say, I will use Abraham to teach, to teach everyone else and lead them back to the knowledge of God. But Abraham comes up and his grandson, Jacob, goes to Egypt, stays in Egypt for 400 years. The people who had been chosen to tell the good news of God's love to the world are bound for 400 years. And they are learning pagan ways, Gentile ways. They are now corrupted. They are now coming out of Egypt with Egyptian mentality. But God still follows them up and says, I still want to use you.
Yeah.
So what God is trying to do there when he's choosing them, he's just not choosing them and leaving them like that. Like we said, he's choosing them for mission. So when he's choosing them for mission, what does he do? He wants them to usher in a new society.
Yeah.
That will be a light that will shine and draw many people unto him. You remember the commandments that he gives. He says, if you do A, B, C, and D, Israel will be a super nation, that many people will come out and be co-opted into this nation. So if you do what I do. So this is a time when there is worship of multiple gods. This is a time when people are killing each other. This is a time when there is gross injustice. Remember, we talked about injustice in previous episodes. Oppression, injustice. There's just disorder in the society. And God says, I want to introduce monotheism. I want to do away with corruption. I want to introduce a proper method of administering justice. And this is what my firstborn will do. You will run your systems in such a way that you will be distinct from the nations that are around you. Therefore, so he gives them laws that set them apart from the nations that are around, so that they can be a peculiar people. That when others look, they'll say, that's a good religion or community. I want to be part of that community. So they're being chosen for mission specifically.
So when it comes to Jesus' time, they've sort of lost that.
Yeah.
Because when we're talking about firstborns, there's a story of Jesus, I remember, that is a story of the firstborn. And the story comes at the end of a trilogy of stories that Jesus told. After the Pharisees asked the disciples, why does your boss share pizza with corrupt tax officials and shady characters?
Yes.
Because Jesus...
Yeah, they were worried that Jesus was dining with sinners, Yeah.
And Jesus then tells the story of the lost sheep.
Yes.
And the story of the lost coin. And
the story of the lost son.
Yeah.
Well, we call it the lost son.
The lost boys.
Yeah.
So there's this younger son who says to his dad, you know what? You're taking too long to die. Can I have my inheritance? Because I want to go away. So he abandons the family, goes to a far country, lives a wild life, ends up broke, and is feeding pigs. And then he decides, you know, let me just go home and be a servant at home. I can't be a son anymore. Gets there, and in a culture where people don't run, respectable people don't run, his father sees him from afar off.
And...
which proves he's been looking for him.
Longing for the day when the young boy
and he starts running.
Yeah.
Now, running in that culture, even I heard of a missionary in Germany in the 1960s, who saw a man get bumped by a car he could have avoided by running.
Wow.
So the man preferred to get bumped by a car
than to run,
than to suffer the indignity of being seen running. So in a culture like that, a dad runs. And this is a property owner. He's not a poor man. He runs to meet a boy
who's wasted his substance.
That's incredible.
So
he runs to meet him, and then his older brother is not pleased when he comes in from working in the fields. He hears there's a party. There's a bride, a fatted calf. The fatted calf is for bride. It's grain fed. Doesn't go feeding on the grass like that. It's chained somewhere. It's grain fed. And so I remember talking about this. I said when a sinner repents, God throws a bride in heaven. So I said I picture the angels, playing tribal house, and there's a bride somewhere, and Gabriel is chasing you with
your imagination needs prayers, but
tribal house and
I know why tribal house of all bra.
Well, I like
tribal house is like
I like deep house, tribal house, soulful house. So
that's why you have the soulful thing.
Soulful. So anyway, people didn't quite like that. Anyway, but I don't care because they don't pay me, and so I. And then he's not happy, and he says to his father, while I've been serving you all these years, while this guy went off
exactly
and
wasted
and
your
was
substance with prostitutes,
with twerkers, and you've killed a fatted calf for him, a super grade beef, with marbling, pink flesh, white stripes of marbling. I couldn't, inyama yamampama liana, angry purple, yellow, fat. You got to make jiggy kind of like when you're eating it. So but you killed his super beef,
super quality beef.
You've just a goat kid. And then his dad says something to him.
Yeah.
Says, dude, everything I have is yours. If you wanted to have a party, all you had to do was throw one.
Just throw one, because everything is yours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he shows something that he's failed to understand.
Yeah.
What a firstborn's role is.
Yeah.
Because the firstborn has a double portion.
Yeah.
He's given a double portion because he's the fail-safe. It's his job to look after the family.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if anyone messes up, he has to fill in the gap. He has to restore them.
Exactly.
So going to work in the fields every day while your brother's off shows that you've missed the point.
Yeah. Actually, he says that the word that he uses there is, I have slaved for you.
Yeah.
To him, he looked at his position as a firstborn and thought that he was a slave.
Yeah.
Yet he doesn't realize that he's the one who's been...
He's the owner.
He's the owner of the thing.
The heir. Yeah.
And that beats me. What you raise is quite a profound point.
Mm-hmm.
To say that the moment the brother left, the younger brother,
mm-hmm.
he was supposed
to go looking for him. But what does he do? He goes and gets busy in the father's field. Yeah.
Right? And I know of many such people,
mm-hmm.
where, for example...
Too busy being holy to have fun.
Exactly.
Yeah. Holy, willing way. Touch me, Jesus. Act like the Bible is written in their house.
Why are you being so violent? Yeah, like...
And those guys are
who abdicate their responsibility in the name of serving God.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give an example. I know of many fathers who are probably elders at church, actually even pastors,
mm-hmm.
who decide to live, pastors who decide to live and go far away from their homes to preach the gospel to other people,
mm-hmm.
yet their children at home are not fed.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have the person would prefer to do responsibility outside of the home in God's vineyard,
mm-hmm.
and yet he's living his responsibility of being a father.
Yeah, yeah.
And the children are living with a father who's a minister of the gospel, and they feel that they have an absent father.
Yeah, yeah.
The father is not meeting their needs at home just because he's busy working for God, and they grow up hating God, which is the same what the brother is doing here.
And what Jesus was saying in that story to the church people was, in doing what I'm doing, I'm actually on God's side, and you are opposing.
Exactly. You think you're doing God's work, but you're actually opposing, and you have a responsibility. I mean, what was the responsibility of a firstborn back in those days?
To look after. Deputy parent.
Exactly. You've used the right word. Deputy parent. So you care for others. You do to your brothers what your father would have done unto them. So if my father is running towards the prodigal, I, as the brother, is the one who was supposed to have been running or following close behind. But while my father is running towards the prodigal, I'm busy looking for reasons to...
I'm busy looking out for number one. I'm working in the garden to prove to him that I'm better than that guy. But he never made me the firstborn because I'm better than that guy. Because he says to Israel, I chose you. There was no... You didn't earn this firstborn thing. So I gave you a responsibility. And I even went to war with the most powerful country, the superpower of your time. To free you. And so his breakup text is going deeper to say, well, of course, we're going to go deeper into that in the next episode. But he's talking in the breakup text to say, you're my firstborn. And we're looking at, okay, when we're talking about the firstborn here, we're looking at what God wanted them to do. That
yes.
you had a responsibility
Yes,
to the other
yes,
nations.
yes.
And it ties in with what God had said to Abraham.
Yeah.
That I'm going to, through your family,
Yeah.
through your kids, I'm going to bless everybody else's kids.
Every nation.
Every other nation.
Through you.
Whoever embraces you embraces the blessing.
Exactly.
Whoever curves you curves the blessing. Yeah.
But you know what the problem is there? Is that being chosen comes with a complex.
Okay.
That when you think that you have been chosen, you think that you are better than everyone else.
Yeah.
Right. I think, imagine being singled out of everyone else, from everyone else, and you are selected and put up there, and just, this is the guy that I've chosen.
Mm-hmm.
Initially, actually, what comes into your mind is, since I'm chosen, everyone else is not.
Mm-hmm.
And you have this superiority complex whereby you think you are better than everyone. Mm-hmm. So the way you treat those who are below you, you load it over them. You make them feel inferior.
You're like, you end up Mama Church, who they stand up in front, mina ngangigeza ngakhuleka futhi ngazila ukudla uNkulunkulu yangiphathisa yangipha indoda. You're thinking, do you think other women were doing that?
Without praying.
Exactly. So they weren't praying. You're the only one. Your prayers
were the only ones.
Your prayers at Aromat. Your prayers at Aromat. God said, no, I like those prayers better than the others, so I'm going to give her a husband.
Exactly.
And yet the truth is, maybe her husband found somebody he wanted to sleep with, and then while he was sleeping with her or trying to, he figured, hey, this is actually a nice person, a decent person to be with, and he married her. And the one he wanted was out of his league. Of course, you can't say that because it's not romantic. And you're there telling me, I prayed, I fasted, I bathed, I changed, I had a makeover. Shut up.
I'm actually
you don't know.
Actually seeing your video being a meme sabo. Yeah, but you're very right. Because we think we are chosen and everyone else is inferior. So we treat. Do you know, we are currently recording this episode in Zimbabwe. Mm-hmm. And in Zimbabwe, if you go on social media, if someone posts something which is seemingly has a wrong spelling of a Ndebele word, mm-hmm. Have you ever seen how the guy gets attacked just because he has a different surname? Okay. I mean, in Zimbabwe right now, years later after getting independence, mm-hmm. there is still battles between the Shonas and the Ndebeles because the other tribe thinks that they are superior to the other. Mm-hmm. Shonas think they are superior to the Ndebeles. Ndebeles think they are superior to the Shonas. Mm-hmm. And you get further again in Zimbabwe, there is the coloureds that come, though, they think that they are the cream, because they're a mixture of the two. You get even beyond, you go to our neighboring country in South Africa, there is fights between foreigners and locals in South Africa. Go to the bigger scale in the world, blacks and whites, there is this battle. Whites think they are superior. They think they are better than everyone else.
Before even going that far, even here, amongst the Mandewele,
oh yes.
Some girl told me, she likes, her mom jokingly says, no, you guys cook this meat properly. And then she told me once that they said to her mom, uswipe ubunguni bakho ubone kube uzawuthengela impuphu.
I said it when we started that today you're under the weather is too much. But those are facts.
So I copied that line and I used it when it was still called Twitter at some point. People were talking about abanguni and I said, uswipe it. And see if it'll buy the bread.
Yeah, because do you know what you're saying? We're saying it jokingly.
Yeah.
But do you know that there was a genocide where people were murdered in the Kukurahundi incident? Mm-hmm. And as a country, we are seemingly shy and quiet to talk about it because it's a sensitive issue. Mm-hmm. But you notice that another tribe thought they are way superior than the other and they butchered people. Mm-hmm. This did not only happen in Zimbabwe. It happened in in Rwanda, right? The Hutus and the Tutsis. And it's right now as we are speaking, Palestinians are being butchered. The mentality, I think it's the Israelites, Israel thinking that the Israelis, they think that they are superior. Have you ever heard even their defenses say we are the chosen nation? This land was given. So when you have been chosen, you think that it puts you in a position of superiority to oppress the one who's not been chosen. Yet when God chose the Israelis, he chose them so that the Palestinians can see the goodness of the Lord through Israelis. But right now, Palestinians are probably, they say, we will never worship the God of the Israelis. Because if the God of the Israelis is making them this cruel, then he's not a good God. So we blaspheme. Actually, there's a verse in Romans chapter 1, I think, chapter 1, verse 20 something, which says, the name of God is blasphemed amongst the Gentiles. Because of you.
So being chosen is not a justification for exceptionalism.
Exactly.
And while we think about that, let's take a break.
Yes. Welcome back
to the third segment.
Yeah, third and final segment.
God's firstborn wife.
Yes.
You know, it reminds me of a tradition. Is it a Negro spiritual? There's this. I grew up. My dad loved listening to a quartet called the Golden Gate Quartet.
Okay, it's a good. Yeah.
And they had this song. You know, well, I don't have a deep voice that could start. You know, go down, Moses, way down in Egypt land. Tell Pharaoh, why don't you let my people
You're
go?
tempting me, but I won't fall for your trap.
You
want me to sing the
voice.
bass, but no,
Go down,
okay.
Moses.
The world doesn't know that I sing, and I can't. Well,
come on,
brother. Okay, come on, brother. I'll cheer you up. Come on, brother.
No, it's the part. It's a deep voice.
Okay.
Go down. Unfortunately,
go down.
Yeah, Moses.
Oh, go down, Moses. Yeah. Oh, come on, brother. That's
I remember even the song.
Why did you mention this song?
Because it's Exodus. It's a song about Exodus.
Oh, okay,
so
yeah.
Episode.
I don't want to sing songs out of context.
So it reminds me of Exodus, you know, because even when it starts, you know, where he was buried, we've never been told, and then songs from my childhood. Yeah. So
now we've left Egypt. We've been chosen.
God hasn't lost his hearing. That's
our last segment. Oof.
So
that's
from the New English Translation. Exodus 3 verse 7 says, "The Lord said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people who are in Egypt. I have heard their cry because of their taskmasters, for I know their sorrows."
So the Lord hears.
He hears.
Yeah, I remember in the previous episodes we were asked that, so does God still hear today? Remember, he heard the cries of Sodom, the shrieks, the piercing shrieks, right? But why does it seem like he's not hearing us today, right? Yeah, in that text.
400 years, more than 400 years later.
Just imagine, 400 years.
You've been crying, God!
But God saw.
And I also picked, it also reminds me of the Negro spirituals.
Yeah.
Because I don't know the tune.
Yeah.
There's a Negro spiritual where it says, you know, I've got a shoe, you've got a shoe.
Oh, yes.
And it sounds weird when you hear it.
See, these guys are singing about shoes.
Some people say the backstory was the slaves didn't have shoes.
Yeah.
And so they'd be sent out in the cold to work.
Yeah.
Barefoot.
Yeah.
And so they'd sing, I've got shoes. You've got a shoe in the kingdom. I've got a shoe.
Right.
And apparently their taskmasters didn't want them to sing that song. And they would beat them.
Oh,
That's one account I heard, and say, don't sing that song.
Don't sing that song.
And a comment on that was, and I found it profound.
Yeah.
Said the taskmasters knew that if there's shoes in the song, it won't be long before there's shoes on the feet.
Oh.
There is something incredible about singing.
Wow.
About crying out.
Wow.
That the road to freedom begins with a cry.
Yeah.
To say, no, I feel the pain.
Oh, yeah.
And something happens. And God says, when you cry, I listen.
Yeah.
I hear. Even when it seems I'm not listening,
yeah.
I hear and I'm working.
You know, the power of song is not only emancipating in the sense that when you cry or sing, someone will hear you. But when you sing out what's in your heart, it's a relief, right? A breath of fresh air to your mind. Because when you sing out your mind, hearing that brings relief to your mind. So, for example, those guys who would be in slavery and they'll be singing songs like Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound, right? And they are singing this, but they are finding hope in the expression of the things that are inside them. They sing them out. Someone might not have heard them, but you yourself, hearing yourself sing that is emancipating to you. So that's what I believe that statement that you're saying, that they knew that if there are shoes in that song, if they are singing about shoes in heaven, eventually there will be shoes on their feet now. Because it gives you that power.
So they say, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water.
Yes. I love that song.
Mary, don't you weep.
Yeah.
Martha, don't you mourn. Pharaoh's army. Been drowned in the sea.
Yes.
So another person said, you know, why the Negro spirituals piece so many Bible stories together. It's because the slaves weren't allowed to read. And so piecing this together it helped their biblical they were learning about the Bible.
They were learning about the Bible through song. I remember when they crossed the Red Sea, the Lord, Miriam sang a song, but there's a part where God says, write the song, write this and make it a song, so that as they sing it, they can remember it more, so that this thing will be they'll learn, actually, it's so that they can learn it better, through singing.
It would be lacquer, you know, if the Christian church here in our country wrote songs about freedom, songs that help them remember the good things God has done for us. Our forefathers were enslaved by colonialism.
Exactly.
And although we haven't really shaken off all the chains of colonialism, we're not as bound as our forefathers were. And it would be lacquer if we would write songs celebrating that God has brought us freedom, some measure of freedom. And songs that would point us forward to the kind songs that would, if we sung about shoes in our songs as well, within our context.
Maybe we haven't experienced Jesus enough to write songs. Because I've noticed we have terrible songwriters.
And I'm violent.
No, I'm honest. You're violent.
Okay. Honesty.
Okay. Tell me why up to now the Christian church world over, largely, if you were to look at the hymn book of the Anglican, the hymn book of the Methodist, the hymn book of the Seventh-day Adventist, have you ever noticed that the songs that are there are almost similar? And those songs were written in the 80s, bruh. 1880s, 1980s, 16. Do you mean to tell me that in this day and age we don't have an experience with the Lord enough to write songs as good as those ones?
Well, in other countries, they have songs.
In other countries.
But here.
So
but also
it's a fact that I'm saying that we have terrible songwriters.
Yeah, but also here we have attitudes towards creative people. People don't want to pay you for. I remember going back and forth on what is now X. With a local comedian, and he said people sometimes ask him, have you got a real job? Because people think comedians are, and they don't know the kind of work that goes into comedy.
Scripting.
You write jokes. You have to practice delivery. So before a comedian puts on a show, he goes from sometimes lunchtime presentations and presenting to
Trying to
people,
test.
trying it out, testing. You don't just stand up on a stage and crack jokes because your wife laughs at your jokes on payday. Yeah.
That's that moment when I think the producer will put their sound and go, because you just dropped some violence there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll bet you there are really good songwriters out there. I'm not one of them because I tried write. A cousin of mine asked me to write a song for Alami Avuma Ngapaluta. But there are good songwriters out there.
Yeah.
And he probably doesn't believe what he has could be called a real job.
Okay. Yeah. So I think we need to encourage songwriters to write songs that will free us from the slavery
and pay them. Yeah. Encourage them by paying them.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm jumping to Exodus 5 verse 5.
Okay.
Still the New English Translation.
Yeah.
Pharaoh was thinking, the people of the land are now many, and you are giving them rest from their labor. And the rest there is Shabbat.
Shabbat, yes.
Or in English, Sabbath.
Sabbath, yeah.
You're giving them Sabbath from their labor.
Yeah.
Now there's this Bible nerd named Walter Brueggemann. I think he belongs to the Universal Church of Christ.
Mm-hmm.
He's an Old Testament scholar.
Okay.
And I heard him deliver I read a book of his, I forget the title.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard him deliver a lecture on Sabbath.
Okay.
Sorry. Oh, sorry about that.
It's okay.
Under the weather.
Yeah,
it's the producer's fault. Anyway, so he gave a lecture on the Sabbath. And on Sabbath. And he described Sabbath as resistance against the idea that your value comes from constant production and constant consumption.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So whether you're a capitalist, our last guest didn't like capitalism, or whether you're on the other side of the aisle, if you're a left winger, there's still things about that economic system that Sabbath, as we encountered it in Exodus, is resistance against
that idea.
Because in the end, all systems on earth, all economic systems on earth, boil down to the fact that your value comes from how much you can produce and how much you can consume.
Okay.
And Pharaoh is within the system.
Yeah.
You notice they're building cities for Pharaoh.
Yeah.
But the cities are unnamed.
Oh,
There's a lot of
we don't know. Yeah.
A lot of debate over what are the cities.
Yeah.
And some Bible nerds I was listening to said that it's deliberate because Exodus is not just talking about Egypt in that time. It wants to present Egypt as a way of thinking.
Okay.
So when we come to the book of Exodus, sin is now systemic.
Okay.
It's no longer a brother killing his brother.
Yeah.
It's no longer two families arguing.
Yeah.
Sin is now a system of laws. It's become a state.
Okay.
And there's something about that. It says that is something you find in every state.
Yeah. So sin in a way has captured the good system.
Yeah. And Brueggemann was talking to say nobody rests in Egypt, not even Pharaoh. Because Pharaoh must supervise constant production.
Yeah. And Pharaoh himself is supervised by the gods. Yeah. Remember, he was
the image of God.
Yeah. So he has to make sure that he produces.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because those gods say, no, we have expectations.
Exactly.
So everyone is always constantly at work.
Exactly.
Without rest.
Yeah.
And so he says to the Israelites, oh, you guys think you want to go free. Now, we're not giving you straw. You go and look for straw to make bricks. And I still expect the same level of production.
That's some high level of operation.
Sounds like some bosses I know. I still expect you to show up at work on time, but uzahola mhlaka 40.
Yes. It's better mawuhola mhlaka 40 and you're getting good money. Other bosses, you get paid on time, but the money is not enough to bring you back to work tomorrow.
Yeah, it is. It's actually costing you money to go to work.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then he'll tell you, it's the economy. What? But his small house has new shoes every month.
Let's not go there.
Yeah. No, we should. Because That's the issue. That's what people are facing here. That's the kind of Egypt
that's the kind of Egypt that we live in.
And very rarely do you hear that being spoken against in church.
No.
In fact, I know of one incident in which a certain church was going to camp, and somebody donated his driver's services to drive people to camp. And then this particular driver hadn't been paid for 6 months. Yeah, there's something wrong with that.
Yeah,
which is what we're talking about when we're talking about in episode 9. That if we serve a God who hears the shriek, how come we can't hear it?
We can't hear it.
It's because we're the ones
who are oppressed. Yeah.
And it's okay because it's church. It's okay to make your driver drive people. It wasn't even in his contract, but you haven't even paid
just
him.
Because
6 months.
Yeah.
So the straw, that was Exodus 5 verse 11, where it says, but your quotas won't be the ISV says, go get straw for yourselves wherever you can find it, but your work quotas won't be reduced at all. Now, Exodus 16 verse 15 to 16, it says, when the Israelis saw it, they asked one another, this is ISV, what is it? Because they did not know what it was. Moses told them, it's the food that the Lord has given you to eat. This is what the Lord has commanded. You are to gather from it what each person is to eat, about 2 quarts per person, according to the number of your people. And 1 person is to gather for everyone in his tent. Man. I love that story because the contrast is so sharp.
Yeah.
In Pharaoh's kingdom, you go out to get straw to build his cities.
Exactly.
God's kingdom. You go out to gather
food.
The food that he has provided. So you can feed your family.
Exactly.
So contrasting the constant work of Pharaoh's kingdom is the restfulness.
Exactly. So I read something which says, comparing the 2 kingdoms, oppression and liberation, it says God's response to the oppression of Israel in Egypt can be paralleled with the Christian understanding of spiritual liberation through Christ, right? So the liberation that we get is that through Christ is the one who provides for our need. That's in the kingdom of God. And in the kingdom of Pharaoh, in the kingdom of the devil, we provide for our own to satisfy the needs of the Pharaoh. But in this case, God provides for our need so that we may be satisfied and willingly choose to save him. So God does things for us.
That's not something small.
It's big.
So God is starting this project that goes against everything that seems normal.
Exactly.
Because Egypt is a superpower.
Topsy-turvy,
Egypt is a superpower. And it sets the pace for even the way we view economics today.
Exactly.
We live and work in a system of scarcity. But God says, no, you're going to work in my kingdom. We work with abundance. Just gather enough for you and your family. Trust me to provide for you tomorrow.
Exactly.
And then, so you don't miss what's going on here. He says, on one day of the week, gather double.
Exactly.
I want you to even rest from, and even in a system where you just go out and gather what I've provided. Once a week, I want you to rest.
And know and trust that I'll provide.
So talking about this incident, Moses in Deuteronomy 8 verse 3 says, so he made you go hungry. I'm reading from the Contemporary English Version. It says, so he made you go hungry. Then he gave you manna, a kind of food that you and your ancestors had never heard about. The Lord was teaching you that people need more than food to live. They need every word that the Lord has spoken. Jesus remembered this in the desert. Matthew 4.
Matthew 4,
Sometimes when I feel provocative, I say to people, every temptation on earth is in Matthew 4.
Yeah.
Those 3 temptations.
Yeah, those 3 temptations. Yeah.
Every temptation falls under that one category. And Jesus remembered this temptation when he faced the temptation of appetite.
Exactly.
He's hungry. Hasn't eaten in 40 weeks. That's more than a month.
Yeah.
So he's been miraculously sustained.
40 days, yeah.
So, 40 days. Sorry.
Yeah.
And he's been miraculously sustained. Obviously.
Yeah. 40 days, like.
And then after that, the miracle is stopped. Now he's hungry.
Very hungry.
Famished.
Now, I saw a movie where Jesus was directed and he was told, turn the stones into bread, and he looked at the stones and there was an illusion of the stones looking like bread. Yeah. And he's hungry. Yeah. He's being told, dude, you keep relying on your God. Now he has dumped you.
Yeah. And Jesus is out in the bundu.
Yeah.
Not a safari.
No one.
He's not out on safari.
Desert.
He's in the bundu.
Imagine it's hot.
Yeah.
There is no water.
Yeah.
Probably there are no shade trees.
Yeah.
Trees for shade. Yeah. Right? And you are hungry. Yeah. You are alone in the bundu desert, bruh.
Maslow would say, at this point, Jesus is going to turn the stones into bread.
Yeah.
Because this is a basic need.
Basic need.
And it's not there.
You need to satisfy the basic need.
And there's an insinuation in the devils. Because it says, if you're the Son of God. And so he says to him, your position, how God views you can be determined by your external circumstances.
Exactly.
Jesus says no. And he quotes this verse.
Yes.
That we don't live on bread alone,
but
we live by every word of God.
We mentioned this as we were beginning. You even mentioned it in the previous episode. The problem is in this generation, people want to live by bread alone without the word of God.
Yeah.
So we are chasing the temporal at the expense of the eternal.
Yeah.
We are busy making money. The reason why we don't turn to our Bibles to read, because we are looking for money. Yeah. We are always chasing the temporal.
And here, in this temptation, it also shows how low an opinion Satan has of you and me, of what it means to be human. Because because Jesus is divine, but he's approaching him here in his humanity. He's also human. And he's saying something about humanity. He's saying that the human is just a bag of needs. And the idea that we are relational creatures is a joke. Exactly. You can feed your appetite outside relationship. And that's not just food, but sexuality as well.
Yeah. You can feed your appetite outside of relationship. So that's why you can have those issues of hearing that so and so is sleeping with so and so, but they're not dating. There is no relationship, but all they're doing is to satisfy their appetite for sexual need.
And it sounds frumpy and like your granny when you say it, but that's actually, it's not only as a man, and as I colorfully put it to a woman recently, that I can sleep with a woman and not have feelings for her. Yeah. I can boom, boom, bam.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah.
And we often talk about how degrading that is to women.
So you killed me there on the boom, boom, boom.
Bang, bang, bang.
Yeah.
And we often say about how degrading that is to a woman. But the truth is that that kind of sexuality is also degrading to me as a man.
Yeah.
Because I've commodified myself.
Exactly. And
so this temptation
throws shade at humanity.
Throws shade at humanity.
To say, okay, bruh, ignore your relationship with God.
Yeah.
Just satisfy your appetite.
Yeah.
You can satisfy your appetite of hunger outside of God.
Yeah.
Because you have the power.
Yeah.
And you know what? Something about that temptation. For some of us, the temptations that come to us are temptations that are beyond our power.
Yeah.
But for Jesus,
it was within his power.
It was within his power. He had the power to turn the stones into bread.
He could sustain himself outside that relationship.
Yeah.
He refused to.
Yeah. But for us, we can't sustain ourselves out of a relationship with God, but we choose.
Satan always tempts you to do something you can't do.
Exactly.
In essence.
Yeah.
But we look at things on the surface.
He gives
so he
you
says, no, you're becoming a god when you do this.
Exactly.
But what he's actually saying is, when you're just another machine.
Exactly.
You're a car engine that needs petrol. You're not anything incredible.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so that very temptation, we think, God is holding us back and he's imprisoning us. But the truth is that temptation is an enslaving temptation because it denigrates what it means to be human.
Exactly.
Satan never wants us to be comfortable with just being human.
Yeah.
He always tempts us to try to be superhuman.
Exactly.
But when we try that, we become subhuman.
Yeah.
And we commodify ourselves.
Exactly.
So adultery is not something. Somebody talking about this, his name is Richard Neese. He was he died, I think, when I was almost a year old. But I've listened to some of his audios, and he had this idea I found radical, in which he said, you can actually commit adultery with your wife, in that if your wife simply becomes somebody you sleep with, you're commodifying her.
Yeah.
Because that, in essence, that is what adultery is. It is the commodification, objectification of another human being. So if you turn your wife into
an object,
an adult toy, a toy for grown-ups, then you're actually committing adultery with your wife. So he says there's some people who are legally married but living in sin.
Yes.
And then to turn things around, he said some marriages can only be fixed if the two have an affair with each other. But that's from Jordan Caesar.
Yeah.
And you have to listen to his entire talks to get what he's saying, and you realize, okay, I get what you're saying.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, how do I tell the difference between slavery and work? How do I know when I'm clutching at straws instead of gathering what God has provided?
For me, slavery involves things like oppression and lack of freedom.
Yeah.
Right. So it's oppression and lack of freedom. Whereas work, especially under God's provision, since we are talking in the context of God, work is purposeful and fulfilling.
Okay.
Right. When you are doing something that is purposeful and is fulfilling, to me, that's work. So, for example, if I'm employed and I go to that job, not because I love my job, but because I want the money, but I'm forcing myself to do something I do not love for money.
Okay.
That's as equally good as slavery. There is no freedom.
Okay.
There's a lack of freedom in that, right? But work is something that is purposeful, something that is fulfilling. And I can tell the difference between the two in that. And one can discern this this difference by the presence of joy and purpose versus toil and oppression.
Okay.
Yeah. Like what the brother said. You remember the brother that we talked about?
Yeah.
The brother to the prodigal. He says that I've been slaving for you.
Okay.
Right. So there was he felt like there was toil and oppression.
Okay.
And he felt like there is lack of freedom in that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh. Now, I want to read one last verse.
Okay.
I want it to be the last thing.
Okay.
And it says, I went back to the breakup text, God's breakup text, Ezekiel 16, verse 9 to 13, contemporary English version. He says, I washed the blood off you and rubbed your skin with olive oil. I gave you the finest clothes and the most expensive robes, as well as sandals made from the best leather. I gave you bracelets, a necklace, a ring for your nose, some earrings, and a beautiful crown. Your jewelry was gold and silver, and your clothes were made of only the finest material and embroidered linen. Your bread was baked from fine flour, and you ate honey and olive oil. You were as beautiful as a queen.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And that's just probably to sum it all up. Right. I think for me, what then makes this whole interesting, at the end, God has chosen us to make us a queen, right? So we're saying God chooses to love you, not because you've done anything good, but because he loves you. And he's chosen you not to oppress others, but he's chosen you, chosenness in the sense so that you can be of use to calling others to the God who has chosen you. So you have been called to be a light to the nations, right? So live up to what God has called you to, not to degrade God's name by your conduct and behavior.
Sure, it's deep. Anyway, we're out. From me, the Soulful Nerd.
And me, the inspired content creator.
Peace.